Stamps.com Advanced Shipper webinar. Before we get started, let me just give you an overview of what we'll be doing today here on this webinar. Most of you have probably already attended the new user webinar, which takes place every Wednesday, or of course you can access a recorded version on the same site that you signed up for this webinar, which is www.stamps.com/webinars. This particular webinar is more of a graduate class from the new user webinar. What we're going to do here today is we're going to skip all of the basics of using the software, like printing stamps and using the postage wizard and looking at the envelopes tab. We're going to jump directly to the batch tab. So we're not going to be reviewing the rest of the software because we did that yesterday on the new user webinar. So by all means, if you're here today and have not attended the new user webinar, I do suggest you at least view the recorded version. Otherwise, a lot of this won't make as much sense to you. So after you see this webinar, I suggest you go back and also watch the new user one. Okay, so although everyone can hear me, I'm not actually able to hear you, but I do encourage you to ask questions. I will try to answer your questions through the course of the webinar. Generally, I hit most of the questions, but please feel free to answer, go ahead and ask them, and it'll prompt me to make sure I include that information. If you're accessing a recorded version of this webinar, of course, I won't be able to see your questions. Also, if your question is particular to your account, specific to something you are trying to do, I recommend calling our customer care team, since I will not be able to access any detailed information about anybody's account. Also, I don't want to answer very specific questions when we're doing a general shipping webinar. So please call our customer care team. We absolutely set an industry standard with our customer care. We are here to help you. Our representatives will be happy to walk you through whatever it is you're trying to do every step of the way. The phone number here is 888-434-0055. Most of you will see that right there in the center of your screen. Now, if you're seeing, and most of you are, if you're seeing a different home page than I am showing here, that is because I am on what is called the professional shipper plan. For more information about that, please, again, ask more about it from our customer care team. The requirements there are, as you're sending Priority and Express are your mail classes you're using, with very little of any other mail class. If that's true of your business, please do call customer care, because it's a great plan if that is your predominant use of the software. For many of us, we are using all versions of shipping, Priority Express, Parcel, Media, First Class, whatever it is we're using all of them, in which case we're better off on using either the Premier, the Pro, Professional Shipper. All of them will work for you. But again, if you're predominantly shipping Premier, I would call customer care and ask how that would benefit you. A couple of things to review here on the home page is, one, where to find help. You, again, call customer care, but you will also see an email link. Stamps.com's customer service is here from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. We are in California, which puts us in the Pacific time zone. So if you need help after those hours, then please use the email link that you will see, most of you, in the center of your page. On the page you're seeing here, it's in the bottom right corner. Our email team does work on the weekends, and so generally you'll never have to wait more than 24 hours before getting a response from one of our representatives. Now, over on the far left of your screen, you'll see a blue bar. It runs from the top to the bottom of the screen. It's blue. That's called the navigation bar, or the navigation pane. And for those of you who have attended the new user webinar, you'll already know that's how you're going to move around within your software. So we're going to start there and just look at the tabs before I begin clicking on them. I would like to draw attention to the gold box that's on the screen in the blue navigation bar. It's the Postage Balance box. From here, what I'm seeing is my available balance that is in my account, which in this particular account is $58.77. Now, when my postage runs low, I'm going to, of course, want to buy more postage. To do that, I'm simply going to click where it says Buy Postage, right underneath the total that's there. When I click on that, I'm going to bring up this window here where I can purchase postage. Now, the minimum amount I can purchase is $10, but the maximum is only going to be determined by the plan you're on. So depending on what plan, Pro, Premier, Professional Shipper, your balances will be different. And again, for those of you who are doing a higher volume, please do call customer care. We do have a lot of plans that are tailored to specific businesses, and we may be able to get you set up with something larger if you're a very, very large volume company. Now, as soon as you select your radio button and click OK, what's going to happen is that postage will immediately show up in your account. There is no wait. So what's going to happen is you're going to be instantly billed for that to the credit card that you chose as the one you would like to have billed for your postage. So click on it. Money is immediately in your postage balance so you can continue with your print jobs. Let's start at the top of the blue navigation bar and start working our way through it. One last thing, actually, I forgot to mention about the postage balance. The amount that you see in there, I like everyone to know, is that is USPS money. So when you purchase postage, that money in its entirety goes to the USPS. If you should have any questions, comments, concerns, misprints, we're here to help you. Please give us a call. We definitely want you to, be getting all of your use out of that postage. So if you do have a misprint, we also have a misprint webinar. It's actually called Printing Best Practices, and it's focusing on ways to avoid them, and I'll talk about a few of those tips. There are a couple of things you can do that are going to take care of more than 90% of your opportunity to have a misprint just by following a few simple tips. But again, please, if you do have a misprint, it's your very first one and you're feeling like you're not sure what to do about it, and by all means watch the webinar or just call customer care. We are here to help you. That balance that's in your gold postage balance box will only go down when you purchase postage. Or if you purchase a service from the USPS, such as certified mail. It will not go down if you purchase supplies from your online store. We'll talk more about that too. It's not going to go down when you pay your service fee. This money is just for your USPS postage. So those two amounts will remain separate. So let's go ahead and first click on Batch, which is immediately where we're going to go. We covered all of the other tabs you see there, the other 5 tabs we covered on our Wednesday webinar. We're going to go ahead and immediately click on Batch and talk about what it is, what it can do for you, and how to use it. So what you're seeing here is the Batch interface. Let's go ahead and talk about that for just a moment. So the batch feature is a great addition to the Stamps.com service, and it was created especially with our online merchants in mind. Now, if you don't actually sell online, but you are fulfilling orders online, whether it's promotional items or whatever it is, this service was created for you, so you're going to find it very helpful to your business. Companies who do predominantly ship do benefit greatly from this easy-to-use interface. Our service provides you with the quickest and easiest way to process your shipment. The software allows you to print out your shipping labels for any mail piece, mail class, or destination allowed by the USPS. And those will all be mixed together, and they're going to print at the same time. You can choose just one out of the entire list and print that, or go ahead and batch all of your orders and print them at the same time. So let's have an overview of this window and what it is. First thing that's going to happen is you're going to bring up this window here asking if you're ready to create a profile. If you are, go ahead and click on Create Profile. However, I'm just going to close this out because I want to talk a little bit more about the view we're seeing here. So I will definitely be creating a couple of profiles with you. So Batch is going to allow me to retrieve my order data from eBay, Amazon, Yahoo, Google, PayPal, amongst their others, via an ODBC connections using such formats as CSV, Excel, Access, SQL, Oracle, etc. I can also import my data in an XML file format. And lastly, but not least, PHP carts for those of you who have your own online store and are using ZenCart, for example, or some other PHP cart. We also support 4 of those currently, with always more coming. You can view all of your orders in one interface, and you can see which ones remain still to be shipped. You can continue to add orders throughout the day and print them together later by doing a manual entry. You can put all of your shipping labels in one batch consisting of all of these various mail pieces and weights and classes and different countries of destination. You can also opt to print a packing slip at the same time you create your shipping label. We have a Postal Analyzer which will automatically check for consistency between your order data and the shipping instructions, and it will highlight any potential mismatches with a warning sign. You're seeing one of them on the screen right now. I have imported a file where I have one that has a problem, so I have a red X next to it. We'll talk more about how to edit and fix that in just a few moments. And Stamps.com will also automatically post back to your e-commerce store such shipping details as the tracking number. This helps you to build buyer confidence by giving your buyer information which allows them to know their package is on the way. So what you're seeing right here, the window, ignoring the blue navigation bar, you're seeing the batch window, which is separated into two basic sections. The first one, immediately to the right of the blue bar, is called the data source tree. The source tree is always viewable to you, all during the use of batch. And each top-level item in this tree shows the data source. For example, let's start at the top, where I've creatively called it batch 1. And it's going to show me in those three statuses, not printed, printed, and canceled. And each one of those will show the number of print items currently having that status. To the right of the data source tree is the batch list, and above that, the supporting controls. We're going to start off by creating a store profile using an XML file, and then later on, we're going to create an eBay store profile and also do a manual entry. So first off, let's go ahead and create a store profile using an XML file. I'm going to click on Manage here above the data source tree, and I'll bring up a window that allows me to manage my profiles. First thing I want to do is add a new one, so I'm going to click on New. I'm going to select my data source. Now, as you can see, I have all of these things to choose from. I'm going to choose XML and click Next. I'm going to name my profile. You can name it by your store. You can name it whatever you like. I am going to call it Batch 2. And click Next. Next thing I will do is find that file wherever I have it stored. I'm going to go ahead and pull that. And click Next. Now I see something called Profile Options. And what this is letting me do is for each of these profiles I create, each store or whatever it is I'm creating, each cart, each store, each source, I can have a different profile for each one of those where I can set the defaults on that. From here, I am able to change the return address if I want to. Now, please be aware there is a difference between your originating zip code and return address. Your originating zip code that shows in your software, the address you used when you created your account, is the address you are physically doing your mailing from. And that's the address that's showing by this radio button that says Use Postage Meter Address. That's physically where I'm doing my mailing from. However, although this is where I ship from, where I fulfill my pet store product orders, if my customers choose to return things to me, I actually want them to go to a different address. For example, I have a place that processes my returns. So I would want to use a different return address. So just make sure that your originating address that's in the software, and we'll talk about where to check on that when we get into my account, should always be physically where you're doing your mailing. That is important to the USPS, which is unconnected from your return address. I get a lot of questions about that. So just so you know, yes, you could have a different return address than the place you're physically doing your mailing. Next area I would fill in here would be the sender phone number. Now, I recommend putting a phone number in here for those of you who are sending internationally. The reason for that is the USPS does require that you have a phone number associated with international orders. Now, that phone number is not going to print on your label, but it does have to be part of the information embedded in that barcode. So do go ahead and put a phone number if you do international. Next, I can add a graphic to my return address. And incidentally, that same graphic will show up on your packing slips should you opt to create packing slips. You can also hide your postage. For those of you who've already attended our new user webinar, you'll know that's a way to hide the dollar value from printing onto the label. For example, I add $1.50 to each of my orders to cover the cost of the bubble envelopes and the employees I have packing the items. And I don't want a label for $3.50 showing up on my package when, for example, I may charge $5 for shipping. So by hiding postage, there is no dollar value determined on the label itself. The USPS can read the dollar value with their processing equipment, but it's not going to be printed on the label. So if you wish to hide the postage, you would select the box here. If you wish to send your recipient an email letting them know that their package is on the way, you can default to doing that by selecting this box here. You can also customize that email, and we'll talk a bit more about that later in the webinar if we have time. Lastly, the packing slip message. If you are going to print packing slips, you're able to go ahead and add a message. I'm just going to quickly type something here. Thank you for your business. And obviously, I have quite a few more characters than that, but that's what I'm going to type here for now. And I'm going to click Done. I've now created the profile. So I'm going to click Done. As you can see, it's showing up here in my profiles. I'll click Done, and it will show up in the data source tree. Now, although it's shown up here, it is not pulling the information yet because I haven't asked it to do that. All I've done is create the profile. I haven't pulled the information in. To do that, I will click the button that says Refresh. The next thing that will happen is if I am trying to re-import an order which has already been changed, so let's say that I imported this earlier today, which of course I did, and I have gone and decided to make a couple of changes that I applied a preset or changed the mailing class. At this point, I can opt to either keep those changes by clicking the Keep My Changes, or I can overwrite any changes I made by just reloading the original order in the first place. Just be warned, if I go ahead and click Reload, I cannot undo that. So if you click Reload, you can't go, oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to go back and save my changes. So just be sure whether or not you want to keep any changes you made or not before making your selection. The next thing that will happen, and you're seeing here, it happened so quickly you may have missed it, but a green bar flashed across there at the bottom very quickly. It's done. It's just sitting there now. But what it was doing was checking addresses against the USPS addresses. So we actually use the same address matching service, and so if an address is all different within the USPS system, this box will let you know. It'll let you, such examples, it'll tell you the address is ambiguous. Perhaps you're sending it to an address, and indeed that address is there, but there's 5 different apartments there. It's going to let you know that and ask you to select the one you want. Once it's done with that, and it's very fast, you're just going to click OK. Now, if you do get one of those alerts that lets you know that there was, something about the address, I would say more than 99% of the time, you can just go ahead and accept that whatever it's telling you, because it is checking the USPS directory, and if it's generally changing things, like perhaps you wrote out an address and you typed the word, you're sending it to Cedar Avenue South, and you typed out South, but the USPS has it in their system as Cedar with an S, for South, not the whole word spelled out. They'll let you know that. So generally, just accept whatever it's telling you, because it's just the version the post office uses. The benefit to that is you don't get things returned to you due to a misaddressing issue. If you do misaddress something, that's a good way to lose some of your products, because it doesn't necessarily come back to you. Or even if it does come back to you, you will have lost the money for that shipping. So this will allow you to know there is a problem. It tells you right up front that there is one, so you can fix that. Okay, so we've imported our order. Next thing we're going to do is learn how to edit a profile. So I've already, I've created batch number 2, but I've decided I want to change something there. I want to change the packing slip message. So to make any changes, I'm just going to click on Manage again. The same place I click to add a new profile, I'm going to click there to also edit those profiles. And this time, instead of clicking New, I'm just going to click on whichever file I want to edit, and I'll click on Edit. And if it's still in the same place, you could just click Next. If not, browse for a new one. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the message here. And I'm going to say this time that big sale, come back soon. Very non-specific. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that. Didn't have a fake celebration set up. So I'm just going to put whatever it is I want my customers to know on this packing slip, and click Done, and click Done again. I've made changes to that profile. Now, a couple of details about packing slips, which are good to know. So let's take a second and talk about packing slips. They're a great new feature. So for those of you who have actually been with Stamps.com for a while, but are just now getting the time to view the Advanced Shipper webinar, let's talk about how to check what version of the software you're on. So the very top of the menu, and the reason this is important is we are always improving our software. And it's good for you to make sure that you're on the most recent version. That way, any new features we've added, of course, they're accessible to you. We never charge upgrade fees. You get whatever the latest and greatest is. But we do need to make sure you're on that version. A way to check on that is to click on the Help tab at the very top and click on About Stamps.com. And as you can see here, I am on version 8.8.1. Now, if we were now on version 10.2, I would want to update. Now, if you look at that right now and you see like 7.6, then you're going to want to upgrade because we have some great new features, some of which we're talking about here today, like packing slips. That was only introduced here to our software very recently at the beginning of 2011. So, definitely make sure your software is up to date. And here's some little facts about packing slips. If you're going to use packing slips, you have to use the sort of packing slips that are 2 to a page or 4 up. They're called either 2 up or 4 up. What those are is it gives you room to create that shipping label. If you're using, for example, there's a drop down here of a lot of choices, and we'll talk more about those, but there's a lot of choices here. I have to be using one of the 4x6 labels, some kind of 4x6 media type, whether it's Stamps.com or Avery or plain paper. I need to be using one that allows me to print a packing slip. Packing slips are available for all web stores, so whether you're an Amazon seller or an Etsy seller or eBay, whatever it is, they're available to you, and also all XML file profiles that you're using. Now, the packing slip will show up to 10 items. If you have over 10 items, that's great. It's just going to print a second page. You can only print the packing slip when you're printing postage. So you can't only print a packing slip if you're going to, just in this route, I should say, because I have a workaround for you I'm going to tell you about. But from here, it doesn't look immediately obvious that you could print a packing slip. But here's how you would do that. Click Print Sample, and you'll get a packing slip. So if you have already created the postage, or you were using some net stamps you had left over to go ahead and send this, but you wanted to print a packing slip for it, go ahead and print Sample, and you'll get out that packing slip that way. The data that populates the quantity, the item codes, and the descriptions are being pulled from your product, your source. So we'll stick with eBay as our example. The information that's going to be on my packing slip has been pulled from eBay. I'm not going to edit that here. It's just information that was pulled from another source. Now, if you're sending internationally, an extra sheet will print for the packing slip. And lastly, for those of you who are going to ask if we have, if packing slips are supported, if you're using the thermal printers, for example, I use one here, the Zebra thermal printer. Currently, you cannot print a packing slip using your thermal printer. That's just for right now. As I said, we've just released this version, and it is certainly something we're looking at adding. So let's talk about editing a profile. So a particular, sorry, not a profile. Let's talk about editing an order, not the whole order list here, but I'm just going to randomly select one here, and I'd like to make some changes to it. So I'm going to click the box next to that particular line, and at the top, I'm going to click Edit. When I click on Edit, I'm going to bring up the order number, and you see it at the top of this box that just popped up, and all of the postage options I set when I created and when I imported. And there's all of my information there. Let's say that I want to, in this particular instance, I had not selected a cost code, but I do want to now. So I'm going to open up this particular line item and change my cost code and say, this was an eBay store sale, and I want that to show for my reporting. Again, not something that's on the label. It's just something, cost codes, as we learned in our new user webinar, are a way for you to run reports on your own postage spending. I use mine to track where my sales are coming from. You may use yours to see how much each employee is using for postage, or you have different stores that you own, and you want to see which store name, whatever it might be. So once I've made my changes, I'm going to click Save, and it will now have changed here as well. It's all done. Now, one other thing which I didn't cover there, let's open that up again by clicking Edit, is as well as the postage options which we just looked at, I can also look at my order details. Let me pull up one that, actually it's a good example. If you pull orders in that have no order details, you're going to see this. It's just going to be blank because I have no order details. So let's pull up one I know does have order details. Apparently I'm about to edit multiple records, which is great. Something else you can do, and I have actually forgotten on many of the webinars to talk about this, and it's a great option. I can, if I want to edit 5 at the same time, I can do that. Currently I have the very top one selected as well as the one I just recently selected, so I'm able to edit both of them at the same time. It was a fortuitous error on my part. So let's go back up to the top now that I only have one selected and click Edit again. And instead of looking at my postage options, I would like to click on Order Details, and I'm going to see what is actually contained in that package. From here, although you see this blue Save button, that's associated with the postage option changes that we just did. From here, I cannot edit any of this information. The reason for that, of course, is this is what I've pulled from my data source. This isn't something I'm going to edit from the postage end. But I'm able to look and make sure that this is everything I want to see in this package. This is the right one. I can go ahead and look at that. Now we talked about what would happen after we made changes. If we went back over here and clicked refresh again, you saw earlier when I had done that and I imported one of these files that I had imported earlier, it asked me if I wanted to keep my changes or whether I would like to go ahead and override them with the original information. So again, if you attempted to do that, you could do it all day long. Maybe you click it every couple of hours to bring in the latest order so you can start packing them. You would just go ahead and keep any changes you made and let it import any new ones that have appeared since then. So let's say you want to see more information than you're seeing right here in the batch list. For example, this is the whole of the information, this one page right here, but there's more information to be had, and perhaps I would like to see that. I would go up here to the very top right corner and click on the sprocket, and you can see which items I have selected to see. That's up to you which items you want to see at first glance, and as you can see from what we're doing here, I can change that at any time. But if you, for example, only want to see the order number, the address, and the class that's being sent, you could take everything else out so your list is a simple 3 columns. Go ahead and click on OK. And now if you look at the bottom, you'll see the scrolling bar has a long way to go because I have a whole lot of information I've decided that I want to see whenever I feel like scrolling across. Something else you can do is change the order that the items are in. For example, let's say that I want to see the order ID first, which I already have, but I want to see the cost of the postage next, not the recipient's name. So I'm going to drag and drop my cost column to the second place and just drop it there. You can also change the headers you can change the order by clicking on the headers here. And if you want to ascend instead of descend, you can just click the header and do that. Something else I can do from here is change the status. Now let's look again at our data source tree, and then we'll see we have 22 orders in our batch list. 3 of them are from one of my stores, 14 of them are from another store, and 5 of them are from a third store. So I have 22 in total. and they're all not printed. However, let's say that one of my customers contacted me and wishes to cancel their usual order. Maybe they would like to place it later with some new product I just added. For whatever reason it might be, they would like to cancel their order, and I've already imported it. So what I can do is I can cancel it right here in the software, and it will post back to the data source. In plain English, that means this is an eBay sale. Customer contacted me, asked me to go ahead and cancel that. When I cancel it here in the Stamps.com software, it will post back as a canceled order to eBay. So let's go ahead and go to the top where it says Mark. My cursor is pointing at it. First, let me select something here. We'll say this one is going to be canceled. So I'm going to go to Mark and open the drop down. And I'm going to change the status from what it currently is, which is not printed. I'm going to change it to canceled. When I do that, if you keep your eye on it, it's going to disappear from this list because this list are items that are waiting to be printed. So it's going to disappear. There it goes, all gone. But if I look at my data source tree, I now see I have 21 not printed and 1 that's been canceled. And if I click on canceled, I can still see that order, but now it is in the canceled folder. Something else I can do is apply presets. So what a preset is let's say that all of my Amazon orders, I sell Chilton automobile manuals on Amazon. Now, there's an automatic shipping cost that's added to buyers through Amazon when you buy a book. I think it's $3.99. But what I want to have is the actual cost of the shipping, because this is what I'm going to be paying the USPS, and it's not $3.99. So if I'm always selling these manuals and they're always about the same weight, I can create a preset and just go ahead and apply those all at the same time before I ship out, instead of doing that all when I first list on eBay, because I don't really need to do that because they're charging a flat rate. It doesn't really matter what it weighs. So for speed's sake, I just go ahead and list all these things, and I don't enter that information from the Amazon end. I'm going to do it here. So let's go ahead and create a preset by opening up the drop-down and clicking on Manage Preset Dialog. I'm going to click on Add. I'm going to name my preset Chilton Manual. The weight is always, I'm going to say, it's always 12 ounces. If I would like to have a cost code, I can assign it from here. This particular item I only sell on Amazon, so I'm going to select Amazon. I can insure my item if I wish to. Now, you have a choice between Stamps.com insurance and USPS insurance. Please choose the Stamps.com insurance. It's cheaper. Stamps.com insurance is always going to be 10% less than the USPS insurance. We have a fantastic underwriter called Personal Insurance Plan. If something untoward were to happen to your shipment, you can actually file your claim right here in the software. Another reason would be that if you do file a claim, our processing time, or rather TIP's processing time, is 10 days, where the USPS processing time after they receive a claim is 30 days. And lastly, a very compelling reason, most online sellers do want to hide the postage. They don't want that to show on their labels. And the USPS will not insure items where you've opted to hide the postage, but Stamps.com will. So if you do want to insure, I recommend selecting Stamps.com. It's a really fantastic, very easy to deal with, very quick, very easy to look at the reporting, very easy to file a claim. So I'm going to go ahead and select Stamps.com insurance, and I'm going to say 20. Something else you can do here is create your customs form. So if you also sell internationally, you can have a preset customs form, which means zero having to do customs forms when you sell the item because they're already ready to go. So you can also do that from here. And then you'll see that specific areas, one for domestic and one for international. Domestic, you're going to set your mail piece, your sizes, any message you want to show, any additional services like certified, etc. And international, you can also select your mail class. Now, for international, that's all you have is that ability. You can't enter a whole lot of stuff like a message or anything. because you're printing the customs form at the same time, so you can't put a jolly message there on your customs form. A good thing to talk about here is I like to encourage all of our new users to investigate the classes you're offered in Stamps.com. By that I mean mail classes, not webinars. You're offered a huge selection. You're offered actually all of the mail classes the USPS offers. The only thing you don't see in your software are any mail classes that the USPS requires you to have a license or a permit for. Everything else you see here, and most people are not used to that, so out of habit, you may continue to pick something you've always picked. For example, it's not that you want your packages there super fast when you send internationally. It's just that you were only ever offered priority or express when you send internationally. But especially with this class, selecting first class international package, it's still a box. It can weigh up to 4 pounds. But the cost example on, say, sending, my last webinar I did jeweled dog collars, so I know this one. For a 6-ounce package, sending a jeweled dog collar is, I believe, $4.80 as an international first-class package, and it's $28.09 or something to send it priority. Now that's a $24 savings on one package. So just to reiterate, if as a new user, check out the mail classes you're offered, because you may not have been using one just because it wasn't offered to you. But our software even gives you estimated time of arrival and everything. So you know, just as a little tip there, I would check out the mail classes you're offered. So once you're done creating your preset, you're just going to click on Save. As you can see, my Chilton manual is there. And I'm going to go ahead and say Done. Now let's go ahead and make a change here. So I've selected the top order, and I'm going to select a preset, Chilton Manual. Oops, and because I didn't select my mail class, so it's going to have a red X, but this is a great time to talk about what that means. Whenever you see this mark here, that means there's a discrepancy, and you need to fix it. And it's very easy to do. All we're going to do is click on the Edit button and have a look here at what's going on. And I already knew what it was because I'd never selected a mail class. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to say that I'm sending it in a thick envelope. And I'm going to send it by, let's see here. I also have almost 2,000-pound package here. We're going to say that it's, I think I said 12 ounces. I'm going to select via, I'm going to send it media because it is a book, so it qualifies. And I'll go ahead and click on Save. And now it's gone back here. It's got a check mark, and it's ready to ship. So that was good too. Another fortuitous mistake. So whenever there's anything wrong, it will let you know and give you an opportunity to fix that, so you don't wind up printing a label that has you know, something that doesn't match at all what you imported from what you just did. So next, let's go ahead and manage a profile again. I would like to add an eBay store. So now that we've done an XML file, let's go ahead and add a different kind of profile. I'm going to go ahead and click on Manage. This is becoming old hat at this, I bet. You're going to click on New. I'm going to select my data source. In this instance, I'm going to select eBay and click Next. Now I'm going to bring up a fairly familiar page here. Well, first I'm going to name my store. I beg your pardon. So the first thing I'll bring up is a window asking me to name my profile. You can keep it eBay Web Store. That's fine. And whatever you want to do, I'm going to leave it that. And then I'm going to enter my actual eBay username and click on Next. Now it's a familiar page here. It's a normal eBay sign-in page, and you're just going to go ahead and enter that in, your information. And go ahead and click Sign In. I'm going to click Yes. I do want to see that page. Okay, this is unusual. I haven't gotten this before. I beg your pardon. Let's try that again. It says I'm signing into a computer that I'm not normally on, which could be true. I could have been on eBay this morning at home, and it's just letting me know that this computer doesn't look right. So I just got an eBay security message, which I have never gotten before. I do this every week. So I'm not going to try it again. So what I'm going to do is, you saw me get the eBay page there, my normal eBay page username, my normal eBay password. And what I'm going to get next is just a window asking me if I would like to allow eBay and Stamps.com to communicate this information. You're going to click yes, and the next thing you'll see is a window that tells you successful. And then your eBay store will also show up in your data source tree. And when you click refresh, it will bring your eBay orders in. So it also adds those to your batch list. The next thing, now we're going to say everything's ready to go. We've checked everything. We are ready to print. Now, the first important thing to check, mailing date. Now, we always need to make sure our mailing date is correct, and that's down here at the bottom. And when I click on the tab, I can change that mailing date if I want to. Now, it's going to default to today's date, but if I want to create the labels today, but I'm not going to be mailing out until tomorrow, then I would want to change the date to tomorrow's date. The USPS is picky about that, so do make sure your date is correct. If you, for example, you can in your software set the date to turn to the next day at a particular time. So let's say that if I haven't gone to the post office by 3 o'clock, that order is not going to go out until tomorrow. So in my software, I can change the date to turn over to tomorrow's date at 3 p.m. For more help on that, just call customer care. We're getting low on time, so we're just going to soldier on. But the mailing date is of vital importance. Make sure that it's correct. Just give a look at it. Make sure that's the date you want to send. Again, you can see these dates coming up in advance. I can choose any of these. Sometimes you may only see 3 days. The reason for that is the mailing date options are going to be based on the mail classes you're using. For international mail, you can only choose up to 3 days in advance. I do not have any international items in this order, so it's not going to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead now. We've set our mailing date. We're going to just decide what to print on. Now, since I would like to print packing slips, I'm going to use a 2 per sheet label. What that is your standard configured shipping label. Whether you're using plain paper or you're using adhesive shipping labels, there's 2 sides. It's like a piece of printer paper folded in half. There are 2 sides to it, and that's what I'm going to be printing on. I'm not going to use plain paper because I ship a lot, and that'd be a lot of tape. I actually do use adhesive labels, and I use actually the Stamps.com 1200 because it's cheaper than the same thing in Avery. But we're going to talk about you can buy either one of them very easily from your online store. If we have time, we're going to definitely visit that. So I'm going to select what I'm printing on. If I want to print packing slips, I will click on Print Packing Slips. Now, here's your biggest tip for avoiding errors when you print. There's a button right here. My cursor is pointing at it, and it says Print Sample. Now, samples don't cost you anything. You're literally just printing an example of the label that you're going to be printing. So how that works is that the word void will be showing up across that label. But the benefit to printing a sample is at least 80%, if not more. I'd actually wager it'd be more than that. More closer to probably at least 85% of our misprints that we have that our customers apply for are based on the printer and computer not communicating. So it's not a problem with either piece individually. It's just the fact that somebody changed the computer settings, or the printer settings, or canceled all jobs, or changed the networking, or it happened to me last night. I went to print a Google map, and as soon as I sent it over to my printer, everything was fine, and the light started flashing on my printer. So the job was spooled over there, but it wasn't about to print. So by printing a sample instead of the actual label, I have the opportunity to make that flashing light happen and get that fixed before I actually print a label and then have to request my money back. Now, it's simple enough to request my money back. It's an e-refund. All I need to do is click a button. But it's inconvenient, and I can avoid that by just printing a sample. So I strongly recommend Print Sample is a great tool. Again, it doesn't cost you anything, so I definitely recommend printing a sample. Once you've got your sample printed, everything looks great, you can go ahead and print your postage. So let's say I do that. I click Print Postage, and everything looks great. Everything printed out fantastic, except for one of these labels, which there was a flawed piece of paper in the ream, and it had black strips and stripes all over it, and you can't read my label. So now I'm going to need to reprint that particular label. This will take care of most of your other misprint issues. If sometimes something just happens, and we understand that, so you have the option to reprint that. To do that, all we're going to do is go to the printed file, and I actually should have printed one here, so we had one to look at. Let's see if we can go ahead and do that. I'm going to deselect that. I actually don't want to print a package because I've got a thermal printer set up here. I'll go ahead and print my postage. Okay, so it's gone ahead and printed. Now it's asking me, do I want to reprint? Or I can just click OK. Everything was fine. I'm going to click OK because I've just mistakenly assumed, and you know what they say about that, I've assumed everything is fine. So I had gone ahead and printed that. And then when I'm going through all those labels and attaching them to boxes, I come across the horribly disfigured label. So now I need to reprint it. I'm going to go to my printed folder, where now there's hundreds of items. I'm just going to locate the one that was messed up. At the bottom right, there is a button that says reprint. So you're able to go ahead and reprint anything that did not print correctly. The last thing that you are going to want to know about is postback. So we did talk about how the information will post back to your data source. That postback action occurs as each print completes. So I bring in 50 orders from eBay, and as each one prints, that information is going to post back to the web store. Now, please be aware that update might take a few minutes, so I wouldn't keep clicking refresh. Give it a couple of minutes to post back and show up there. Now, for particular postback data to a web store, the data source will include tracking number, mailing date, package weight, and again, orders you cancel through Stamps.com will be reported as canceled in your web store. If you're using an XML data source, that postback occurs when the batch print is complete. And the postback data is written to the input file. So in other words, it's overriding the original input content, and will override it with the fact that it's printed and with that postback data. Postback to an ODBC data source is accomplished via the mappings that you set up in your profile. Okay, so the last thing I would like to talk about is showing you your online store and talk about how to make changes in your software should you want to do that. A quick visit at USPS Pickup and Scan. So let's go ahead in our blue navigation bar. On the far left, let's click on USPS Pickup. I should have picked the priority items because USPS will come and pick your packages up, provided one of them is priority or express. That could be domestic or international. Just the mail class is important, priority or express. So let's say hypothetically I have 100 orders I'm shipping out today, and one of them is priority, and the other 99 are a mixed bag of mail classes. They're parcel, they're media, they're first class. There's only one priority. The USPS is more than happy to come and pick up all 100 packages as long as one of them is priority. So it will always behoove you to make sure one of the items you're sending out is priority so you can take advantage of that free pickup. And if you do have that, you're just going to click on the items, click all, because I have 100 packages here, and I'll click Schedule Pickup. I'm going to get a message telling me I'm not allowed because I don't have a priority or express item. But if you did have one, you would just let the USPS know where you want them to pick it up from. Ring my doorbell, be on my porch, around the side, whatever it is. You can give them instructions, and they'll send a truck to get your items. The scan form is something the USPS introduced about 2 years ago, which allow you to create one single unified barcode that will contain all the information for those 100 individual packages that we're sending out. So I'm going to come to this page, and I'm going to select all, and it'll pick up all 100 of my orders, and I would go ahead and print scan form. That page is going to have one single barcode on it, and when the USPS collects all my packages and they scan that single barcode, All 100 of my items are officially in the USPS mail stream. Very handy. It was actually a great thing added by the USPS, and that shows the power of online businesses, because that was a real problem for online businesses that were showing messages like electronic notification received, which all that meant to your buyer is that you created a label for me, but that doesn't mean you ever mailed my item. So by creating scan, as soon as the post office scans that single barcode, it's in there, and they take responsibility for it, that it's, and you can give that tracking number to the recipient, and the item is on its way. That's a great tool. So let's go ahead and click on My Account. From here, you can make changes to your own account, your payment method. If you're on a multi-user account, you can set up the administration rights that you want your other users to have. Let's again talk about postal meter address. That is your physical address where you're doing your mailing from. That needs to be correct. The USPS cares a lot about that. And this is the physical place you are where your mail is. The post office that's processing your mail, basically, that's the address you want to have in here. Yours, your address, and it should be the same zip code as your local post office. In other words, you don't want to go on a traveling trip and use, without changing this postal meter address, and use that postal meter address already in here. Instead of saying California, I took a trip to see my dad in Florida, and I'm still using my software without changing that address. All my information is going to be wrong, including the postage itself. So make sure that's correct. So if you are traveling, you're welcome to use your software. If you have it on your laptop, perhaps, just make sure that the address here reflects where you physically are. I click My Account again. A few other things you can do. I told you you could personalize your notification email you're sending to your recipients. To do that, you're just going to come to the first column in My Account and click on Ship Notification Email. And this is what you'll see. You can go ahead and enter the message here. And I'm going to type, thank you. And I'm going to click Preview. And this is what I see. So letting my buyers know. It's a pretty bad note I did up here, but it'll be my personalized message. It will give my buyer the information, the tracking number, the details of their order number, for example, the tracking number, and the contents of that package. I might go ahead and send that to my customer. A couple other things you can do from here: change your own plan. So if you do need to upgrade your plan, or even, as you can see when I open mine up here, I can upgrade, or because currently I'm on the $34.99 plan, but Stamps.com is offering you all different plans, and I like to point out, because I know it makes a lot of our buyers happy, a lot of our customers, that they're seeing orders, but they can actually, if they want to, go to a less expensive plan. So if you feel like the plan you're on isn't answering your needs, we also have, for example, I work in a law office, and I need FedEx. So I might use Premier. I'm not actually shipping packages. Now, as I said earlier, if I ship a lot of packages, professional shipper is definitely the way to go. But if I'm not a shipper and I'm working in a law office that sends all mailing and needs access to FedEx, this would be the plan for me. The last stop I'd like to make before the end of our webinar is your online store. I'm a big fan of our online store. I'm all about people saving money. For many, many years, I was an eBay power seller, and I understand that you want to save money where you can. We all do, and the online store is a good place to start. So next time you have a little bit of time, I would check your prices that you see in your online store against what you're currently paying. Stamps.com offers a 110% price guarantee with those office superstores, like the office box stores like Staples and Office Max and Office Depot. We guarantee our prices are lower for the exact same item. So when you have an opportunity, please check and see if it's a way to save a little bit. Another tip for you is to, if you're using, for example, an Avery 3-part mailing label, I would investigate the Stamps.com 3-part mailing label. because not only is it cheaper than you would have gotten it at say, Office Max, by using ours instead of Avery, you're saving yet more money. So again, when you have time. And something else that everyone's going to like here is the free USPS supplies. So you can get all of those items you're using to do your shipping, and everyone here is a shipper, which is why you're here. All of those priority boxes and supplies and forms and stickers and all of that you can get for free in your store. Just go ahead and click on free USPS supplies. Again, just to reiterate, not only are the items free, they're shipped to you for free. You can get those through your online store. I do encourage everyone to take some time and investigate the offerings there. So let's go ahead and finish up where we started on our home page. I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to join me today. I very much like to hear feedback, so if you have any webinar feedback, please let us hear what it is. If you would have liked to hear a little bit more information about something, or perhaps you have an idea for another webinar, please by all means let us know. We do these webinars for you, and your feedback is vital to us. Again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful morning. Thanks again. Bye-bye.